Today is the day one. I'm going to try learning. Okay. So I think learning is the key. Keep remove anxiety. Let's go. Uh, see. See. This is the roadmap, not message. Okay. So just want to learn and improve.
Won't you be Ferrari Abigail?
Which language should I learn?
Bataka bean. Sakkaria bean. Satar
Any
Odisha.
language we can pick.
Matakita bean. Masala man. Singama Bupo. Kaurelu Noria. Adu Jani Bear.
Okay.
After audio. No, yeah, you get.
Articles. Java. Okay. Should we start and pick? Let's see. As well as my game. Let me explore this a little bit because currently we are using Unity. So what this article says, a little bit. Okay, write your first C sharp code using C sharp part 1. Start. Hi. Oh bye. Oh bye. जा बीचा रूम में जाओ ना.
Dinu ka deal.
Okay. I think this is the basics to write our first code. Write the first line of the code like C sharp, the console dot write ln, which writes the code and which is which we writes the code and print. It will print in given the Visual Studio console as on see this is
Hey friends, I'm Scott.
And I'm David.
And we're going to learn C# today. Now C# is one of the languages that's part of the .NET family of languages. There's C#, there's Visual Basic, and there's F#.
Yep.
Yep, and we're going to talk about C# today. Now, why should I learn C#, David?
Because you can code a lot of things with C#. You can build web apps, you can build mobile apps, you can build games.
People talk about cloud native and Kubernetes and microservices. You can do fancy applications that are in the enterprise and big business, but you can write, like most of your favorite video games are actually written in C# with things like Unity and Godot. A lot of your Xbox games are written in C#. Yep. You can write Android apps, you can write iPhone apps, you can even write applications that run on a Raspberry Pi or a tiny microcontroller, a little tiny chip. So C# basically runs everywhere.
What can't you do, Scott?
I actually don't know what you can't do. You can pretty much do everything in C#. It's a really great language to start with. It's free, it's open source, and it's cross-platform. And cross-platform means that you can run on a Mac, on a PC, or on a Linux machine.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. So we're going to learn that today. We're going to go through a little bit slowly. We're going to do a beginner on-ramp into C#, and then by the end of this, you should be able to go actually to freecodecamp.org and maybe think about getting your C# certification. It's totally free, your foundational C# certification. So let's learn C#.
Let's do it.
Welcome to Linear Algebra. We are going to start with a review of systems of linear equations, so hopefully everything in this first video is review for you. So we are familiar with solving systems, and you've solved a system like this before, but it probably looked just a little bit different because it might have looked like x plus y equals 5 and 3x minus 2y equals 10. So this is a linear algebra class, and so we're going to have quite a few variables, and so instead of x, y, z, and then now do I start over at a, we're just going to use x with a subscript because then we can have just as many variables as we want. So that will be the only real difference, or the two differences I guess, is instead of x and y we're using only x's, and we're going to have a bunch more variables than we're used to. Now we're going to be using matrices quite a bit, and maybe this is the first time you've dealt with matrices, and hopefully not. But there are two matrices you need to be familiar with. The first is the coefficient matrix. So if I'm looking at the coefficient of x1 and the coefficient of x2, notice those are both ones, and those are my entries here in the matrix. And then of course 3, and don't forget the sign, -2, and those are the four values in my coefficient matrix. So notice in the coefficient matrix I use only the coefficients and I don't use the solutions of 5 and 10. An augmented matrix has the coefficient matrix on the left side, has some kind of divider here, dotted or solid line, though I will tell you in the textbook that we're using for this course they often don't have a divider. I want you to use a divider. And then on the right side, of course, this is the solution set of 5 and 10. Now, we hopefully are very familiar with being able to solve the existing system because I made it a nice and easy one, and I only have 2 variables, so I feel like I was being pretty easy. So let's take a look at how we would solve this, not using a matrix, and then we'll talk about what that looks like with a matrix. So if I were solving this, remember that I'm going to solve by elimination, and what that means is I want to be able to add these two equations together and for one of my variables to eliminate, which means I need the same coefficient but the opposite sign. So I'm going to choose to take this entire equation times 2, because that's going to give me in this column a positive 2x2 and a negative 2x2. So if I add these together, I get 5x1 plus 0x2 equals 20. And of course you don't even have to write the 0x2. And then by division I would know that x1 is equal to 4. Now, before I solve for x2, let's take a look at this augmented matrix of 1, 1, 5, 3, -2, 10. And I want to think about what we just did. What we just did is we multiplied that first equation by 2, and then we combined the two equations. So that's what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to use some notation that I'm not really going to explain yet. So in a future video, I think the very next video, we're going to talk about this notation. But for now, just know that I took 2 times row 1 and I added row 2 to it, and I'm going to make this my new row 1. And again, don't get too caught up in the notation. I'm going to go through that in very great detail in the next video.